Okay, so now we have Premiere open and we're gonna get into our into a little bit more depth in Premiere. And so watch closely because we're going to be doing a little bit more technical work, especially since we have two audio tracks. And so we're gonna get into that. So as usual, you're going to click New Project. You're going to enter in your project name and then underscore your last name and then the tutorial. Yeah, and then in my project location, I'm going to choose my location. If you don't already, you're going to have your project file bin, and inside of your project file, you're going to choose that, and that's going to put this project in your project file in your hard drive. Then you're going to create, and that's going to bring us into our editing space. So the first thing we're going to do, as usual, we're going to go grab a new bin. We're going to type sequence in the new bin. And then we're going to bring in our footage and our audio. So we're going to go to your file explorer. You're going to drag in your audio and you're going to drag in your video. Okay. Then we're going to go into our sequence box. We're going to select new item. We're going to go to sequence. And we're going to select, as usual, the HD 1080p. We're going to name it project name, your last name, and you're going to hit OK. Okay, and now we are good to start editing. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to start editing. But the first thing we need to do when we edit is to get our audio aligned because we're working with two tracks of audio. Remember, we have the one that was recorded with the wireless Go, and we have the boom zoom mic audio. So we have two different ones. One is attached to our footage and one is just hanging out in the universe. So you can go to your footage panel and you're going to drag in your interview, and you're going to keep your existing settings. You're going to remember to scale to frame size, and that's going to pop them in. I want you to pay close attention to your audio waves here because you have this left channel and this right channel, and not always, but depending on which Rode mic you got, it might just record to one side. And if you play it, it's just going to come out of one of those channels instead of both of them. So if you listen to it, it's going to come out of the left side of your computer, the left side of your headphones versus your right. And we want that to be changed. And so we're going to right click on our footage here, and we're going to go to audio channels. And in your audio channels, you get to choose which one. And so we're going to align because it's coming out of our left channel. We're going to align left, and so remove the check mark from this and pop it over here. And you don't actually have to remove it. You can just click where you want it, and then you're going to hit OK, and it's going to double up.
A senior bio.
And now it's going to play. We can look at our audio.
You can major at Earlham College.
Levels here, and if both of them are the same, that means we did it. If you're not sure which ones to pick, basically you're just going to align under the one that had the waves. But if you ever click the wrong one, you just would go back and select the other side to get your channels. Okay, so now
this summer I've been
now we have good audio there all the way through. And I'm going to go back to my project bin and drag in my second wave here. And this is only on one wave, so even though it looks, or on one side, one channel, so even though it looks like there's just one, that's okay because there's only one side. Okay, so now we have these both loaded in, but if I hit play
at the University of Cincinnati, they're
not aligned, right? They're not synced up. And so that's the next step we need to do. There's a couple of ways to do this. The easiest way is to select all of your clips. You're going to right click on them and you're going to click synchronize. And that's going to bring up this panel. You want to select the audio track channel 1, and then you're going to hit OK. And that's going to process the audio, and that's going to sync it right up for us. And so we're going to just drag the edges of each end of the audio or the video, whichever is longer, and we're going to shape that up nicely to here. At this point, you can mute one of your tracks and listen and see which audio track is better. And once you decide that, we can move on to our next stage. Okay, so that's one way to align your audio. Now, sometimes when you try to run the synchronize steps, it's going to say like could not synchronize your footage. And when that happens, you get to play a fun matching game. And so I'm going to delete this again. I'm going to grab my audio wave again. That way we're not cheating here. And then you get to try to align the wave shapes with the wave shapes on this audio. Obviously, you can listen to it, and that'll help somewhat. But you want to use a combination of both listening to it
out there
and aligning the waves. So we can kind of see, I kind of see a matching shape here. And so we're going to drag it until it kind of matches up. Here we want like the dips to align, and I think I'm seeing the pattern here. I kind of know because it did synchronize before, but there is always a pattern match.
I'm curious, like what gives you satisfaction? Like, give me like a sense of the impact.
So
when you think about like.
So we're getting a little bit muffled around here.
Anatomy and physiology when I first cells. Count.
Bit off in this direction.
Okay.
Can you just tell me?
Okay. So after much small micro maneuvering, we got where we wanted, and we're nice and lined up now. And again, I'm just going to bring in the edges of my audio until we're there. Okay. So we got where we needed to be. That's great. And so now you can choose which audio track you want to use. You can mute and unmute.
And after he had gone through the entire process of suffering to overcome it, he really like assessed the issue.
And you can decide which audio is better. The next step is, once we've like chosen our track, is to make some changes and get rid of our other audio. So you want to be sure that this audio is good, and like listen through it all the way to make sure that you're not getting certain sounds. One thing is you can leave it like this. That being said, every time you make a cut, you would need to cut both of your clips. That way you're not losing one of them. So just there's trade-offs there. What I'm going to have you do though today is we're going to delete it, and we're going to do this for a couple of different reasons. Okay, so to delete your audio, the one that you don't want, you can either, if it's this one that you don't want, you obviously can just delete it and you can move on with your life. If it's this one that you want to delete, the one that's hooked up to the camera, you're going to right click on your footage and you're going to click unlink. Now, before you do this, you want to triple check.
Gauge whether there is a presence.
That everything is aligned, that your audio that you added is synchronized with this, because if it's not synchronized, you're going to screw yourself, and we don't want that. Okay, so right click, you're going to click unlink, and that's going to unlink your footage here. Then you're going to delete your footage that you don't want, and we're going to go ahead and move up our footage. We're going to make sure that it didn't go all crazy, that we're still like aligned nicely. So we're going to highlight our clips. We're going to go right click on them, and we're going to merge our clips, I'm going to title it interview footage. And you're gonna hit OK. That's going to put our clip in this main panel, and we're going to put it into this interview panel. And now when we listen to it,
Just a perspective. Because prior to this, I had
it's going to have our right audio.
no idea.
Great. Okay. So there's a couple of different ways that you can edit. One is to go through the interview, and you're going to select your in and out points
Major at
of clips that you want.
College, and this summer I've been interning at the University of Cincinnati Medical College here at the Steve Davidson Lab, studying the effective dimension of pain in mice.
Great. And so say that I want that clip in my timeline. I could drag it in like this. You're going to always keep your existing settings. You could click this overwrite button, which if you have things like if you have video clips already in your timeline, it's going to overwrite them, like going to delete what's already there. You can click the insert button, and that's going to insert it between any clips
Major
that
at
would be
Earlham
there.
College.
And you can just decide what you want. This is called 3-point editing, when you're selecting an in point and out point, and then you're either dragging it or clicking one of these buttons. There's 3 points, and that's what 3-point editing means. And so one way you can edit is just by going, listening to your interview. Anything that's good, you just slot into your timeline, and at the end, you're left with all the good parts of your interview that you can then mold into your story. And so that's a good way. The benefit of doing that is that you're going to hear the inflection and all the voice of the person that you're interviewing. You're going to see if it's like left with a question mark at the end or a period or all these different inflections that our voice has. And so it's a good way to emotionally do it. It is a little bit more time consuming. Another method you can do is you're going to go up to your window and you're going to make sure that this text is check marked. And that's going to bring up a window called text. It's going to look like this. And it's going to automatically give you a transcription of your entire video. And you can do text-based editing in this. So if you find a clip that you want, so say we want that intro again. Hi, I'm Robert Lemon, blah, 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 blah. Pain in mice. I'm going to select all of that. And then I'm going to, in the same way that we just did, I'm going to go to my insert button and I'm going to insert it.
Hi, I'm Robert Lemon.
This is of course going to need to be scaled.
A senior biochem major at Earlham College, and this summer I've been interning.
Great. So that's going to play exactly what we selected. And if we want to select more, we're just going to double click again on our clip, go to our text window, and we're going to scroll down. We're going to read and select another part that we want. So say we wanted this. And we're going to go up here and insert that clip.
At the University of Cincinnati Medical College here at the Steve Davidson Lab, studying the effective dimension of pain. But a majority of the work that I've done here in the lab.
So we're gonna want to make, apparently I selected the butt in there and I don't want that. Again, I'm gonna go down here and scale the frame size. You can always, of course, do this in bulk by selecting multiple clips. So if I want to cut off that butt, I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to listen for it. I'm going to use this slider to get really close to my footage. And the butt is right here. And so I'm going to just use my cursor and cut it out.
And it
looks like I got a little bit of the in there.
A majority of the.
And I'm comfortable with that. I'm going to right click in the center of here and ripple delete my clip.
A majority of the work.
Getting a little bit of audio pops in here.
Studying the effective dimension of pain. A majority of the work that
So if I wanted to ease that, I'm going to slide my clips a little bit apart so that we're kind of like inserting a breath here.
Of pain. A majority of the work.
And I'm going to go ahead and apply a default transition, and I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to select it on the top, and I'm going to get rid of it on the top, and then on the bottom here, I'm going to make it, you can see how it's the curve that we're building. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer.
A majority of the work
And this way we're not getting
of
that.
pain,
And we've got a little pop on this side,
of pain, a majority
and we're gonna make that little,
of pain, a majority of
I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side here, just to ease it in a little bit more. Gonna grab that corner there and squeeze it in.
mention of pain, a majority
And it's kind of goes down with pain, and it kind of gets quieter. So I'm gonna see what else I can do here.
of pain, a majority of the of pain, a majority of the work that I've done here in
Okay, great. So that seems a little bit awkward now, but as we add more B-roll in, it's going to make more sense. It's going to cover, our B-roll is going to cover our clips, and we're also going to have music. I'm noticing
lab
that my audio is a little
was with
quiet here.
a PhD student.
Just jiving around this -24 dB, and that's not what I want. I want around -12. Gonna highlight all of that, right click. Gonna go to my audio gain. Again, you know, in a perfect world, I would have upped my gain in the moment, but it's not always perfect. So I'm going to adjust it to about 10 and see where that leaves us.
Laura Mail is her name, and she's in the lab with a focus.
And we're arriving right about -12. And I knew to add 10, right? Because it's just addition. We're increasing it by 10. So if I'm right about 24, if I give 10, that's going to get me right about that 12.
Of pain and stress, which is part of the reason why the prefrontal cortex is in her interest. Hi, I'm Robert Lemon.
Okay, so we're getting somewhere now. So I'm just going to continue to add clips in. Okay, so I feel good about that. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the audio gain again on these clips. And I'm going to size them correctly.
Part of the reason why the prefrontal cortex is in her interest. My interest in pain, in her interest.
So again, we're getting these little like abrupt,
Interest. My interest in pain,
it's not too
her
bad here,
interest. My interest.
but I might add just a couple of those fades here.
To edit, we don't want any pops or anything like that when we're editing our audio. So we're just kind of smoothing out the edges, fading them out so that we're not getting the pops in there. My interest in pain. And it's just a little bit smoother. And pop over here. I'm going to select this track select forward tool, and I'm going to move things in my timeline up. That's going to move everything up, which is a nice tool to have. I'm purely becoming, play my part that I can to fix it. I'm purely becoming a medical doctor. It feels to fix it. So we have purely becoming a medical doctor.
A little he started to say one thing and then switched, and so I'm going to cut out the of here, and I'm going to get rid of it.
It feels like a medical doctor.
And that creates a little bit of a jump cut, which we don't want, but we're going to be sure to cover that with B-roll.
I'm purely becoming a medical doctor. Fix it. I'm purely.
And then same thing, I'm going to add a couple smoothing transitions here. Okay. Okay, so we've organized most of our interview in an order that I like, and it's going to take you more time than what I just did. When I edit this for real, I'm going to comb through it a little bit more carefully, make sure that everything like jives and that we're telling a story in the best way possible with the footage I have, and so that takes a lot of time. And so like editing interviews is a time consuming thing, and you want to make sure that you are like, you know what your story is about, you know the story you want to tell, and then you're editing in a way that conveys those things. Okay, so we have our footage down here. We're just going to pretend like this is the ending product for our interview. And now it's time to add your B-roll. Okay, so we've mainly been just working on one track here. And so we're going to start placing footage in our second track. And anything in our second track is going to be visible and not our first track, right? So the top layer shows through and the bottom layer chills there. Okay, so I have a bunch of footage. I'm going to start looking at the stuff I have.
I guess you can think of a good angle here. I'm not really sure.
Oh, I like this piece.
I guess you can think of a
I'm gonna mark in
good angle here. I'm not really sure.
now. Okay, that looks fine. I don't really need the audio. I know I don't want the audio, so I'm just going to select the video only, and I'm going to start dragging that onto my page. Again, I'm going to want to scale the frame size.
Hi, I'm Robert Lemon. I'm a
And I'm noticing that my footage is kind of shaky, right? And so maybe I want to add something to that. So there's something called a warp stabilizer that I can add to this clip to make it a little bit more stable since it is a little shaky. And you want to use this effect with caution. So to get to our warp stabilizer and our other effects, you're going to click these double arrows on the side. You're going to click the effects bin, and you're going to bring it up. Going to type in warp stabilizer. It's going to be under this distort, and I'm going to throw it on here. Great. And then I'm going to go to my effect controls. If you don't see your effect controls panel, go up to your window tab here, and make sure that the effects, if you don't see the effects, you can grab it here, and you want anything that you want to see in your panels, you want those check marks. So make sure this has a check mark, make sure this has a check mark by it. Okay.
I'm a senior biochem major.
My footage is much smoother here, but
Robert Lemon.
we're getting this like weird funky effect. And that's because our smoothness under our warp stabilizer here is at 50%. You never want to be at 50%. The max you want to go is like 5. And honestly, I always stay at 2. If your footage is no good after 5, then you need to reshoot your footage. So
Hi, I'm Robert Lemon. I'm a senior biochem major.
I get a little bit of help with the smoothness, but we're not creating this like weird warping effect in our thing. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our footage here. And I'm gonna start just dragging other clips. Usually what I do is much like I go through my documentary, my interview footage, and get all of the good clips that I want for the interview. I do the same process for my B-roll, and I go through all of my B-roll and grab the clips that I think would be good. And then after that, I parse through them and figure out what I actually want to use.
Ready? Yeah. All right. So this is the electrophysiology rig. This is where the lab essentially takes reading from live neuronal tissue directly.
So say I want to include some B-roll that has audio attached to it. Maybe I want to stop this interview and go to this section to have him explain what this machine is. I can do that. I can drag it down, and I'm going to put it on this top row. Now, beware, if I put it on the bottom row, it's going to overwrite my interview, which we don't want to do. So be cautious, be wary of where you're placing your footage, because we want our video on the top, and we want the video audio, if we're bringing audio into this, we want it on that second row, not on this first row where we have the person speaking, but on the second row. Okay. And again, we're just making sure all of our footage is nicely sized here. And you would just do that for all of your B-roll. One thing about editing interviews is that you can start off with B-roll, but pretty quickly you need to make sure that the person who's talking, whose voice is talking, is seen.
Hi, I'm Robert Lemon. I'm a senior biochem major at Earlham College, and this summer I've been interning at the University of Cincinnati
And I know that I want, he's talking about the University of Cincinnati Hospital. And so I have some clips of him running around the hospital. And I'm going to grab one of those to put in this section, because the way he's talking, I want like the things he's saying to, so if he's talking about doing research, I want a B-roll clip of him doing research. If he's talking about the hospital, I want a clip of him interacting in the space of the hospital, right? And so we're using our images to just enhance his words.
Medical College here at the Steve Davidson Lab, studying.
Okay, so he's at the college and then he's talking about being in the lab. So I'm gonna grab this clip of him in the lab.
The Steve Davidson Lab, studying the effective dimension of pain. A majority of the work that I've.
And then we're kind of switching, so we can't do that. And I'm going to switch.
A majority of the work that I've done here in the lab was with the PhD student.
And he's talking about the PhD student. And I believe I have a clip of him interacting with the PhD student. I'm not sure where. But if I had that, I would put that in. And basically,
Medical College here at lab, studying the effective dimension of pain. A majority of the work that I've done here in the lab.
okay, so this is pretty rough. It's not flowing yet, but it will. So we've got this pretty good where we want it. I'm going to go to our asset bin and drag in the music I chose. Okay, so something to keep in mind is that usually when you get to this point, if you have any of your B-roll that has taken up the second track, you're going to need to use this handle to scroll down so we can see the third audio track, and that's where you're going to put your music. I'm going to adjust our sound.
Davidson Lab. I've been interning at the University of Cincinnati Medical College here at the Steve Davidson Lab, studying the effective dimension of pain. The majority of the work that I've done here in the lab.
And again, we can use our keyframes to maneuver like when the sound is coming in and how loud it is. If you have like a little break in what's talking, so say that we created a little break during this B-roll piece, excuse me, then we could.
Is part of the reason why the prefrontal cortex is in her interest.
So say that we wanted like a little organic break here. We could grab a couple of our keyframes and then lift the music just in the middle of this break. That way it like fills the sound and we're not like missing anything. As a viewer, we're not thinking like, oh, something is missing here.
In her interest.
That's too much. Just want a little left.
My interest in pain definitely is kind of the root cause of this whole thing.
And our music isn't quite long enough, and so we could either pick another music track, or sometimes if you're really attached to the music track you're in, a lot of tracks repeat, and so you can cut a track, you can extend it to where you need it, and then you can mess with where your endpoint and outpoint is to try to find a place where the rhythm repeats.
Went through the qualms of opioid addiction to overcome it. He really like assessed the issue.
Okay, so because this track repeats so much, you can't really hear when it starts again. So I'm just going to apply that little fade, the crossfade.
But he really like assessed the issue.
And we're gonna be fine. Our little key points did come over from before, and I'm going to delete those. And now our track is the same length. You want to be careful and like really listen to it to make sure that it it is actually like appearing the way you want it to and doesn't create a jarring way. But usually in most music, because it does kind of repeat, you can find a way to extend it. Okay. So we're doing good. I need to do a little bit of color grading, and to get your color grade panel up, which you don't need to do unless you want to, and we talk about it. You can go over here to our workspace. Again, your window, and you're going to click Lumetri Color, and that's going to pull up your color panel. Here you can do basic corrections like your temperature. You can adjust your highlights and your shadows a little bit. You can just mess around with that. I'm going to quickly do a little bit of color grading on our clips here. There. So we got our music, we got our best track of audio, we got our B-roll in here, and now we need to add a lower third. I'm gonna close down this panel real quick. You can always like reorganize your panels a little bit here. Okay, so now a lower third is what's gonna appear. I would color grade this better. That's not a great color grade, but we're doing this quickly. Okay, we're gonna add a lower third here, and to do that, you're gonna go down to your type tool, and with a lower third, you want the first page. It's going to add another layer here on top, and that's usually how I like to do it. I like my first line to be my interview footage, my second line to be my B-roll, and my third line to be my animations and my text. Sometimes I need to use a fourth or a fifth line, but generally 3 will do it. Okay, so we're going to go up to our window, and we're going to again make sure that our effect controls panel is up. It's going to pop up here usually, and it's going to have a lot of different things that you can use here. Okay, so as soon as this pops up, we can go over to, it's going to pop up here. It's going to say Robert Lemon, the text that we just did, and we can click this little pop down window, and we can choose what font we want. I'm going to use New Spirit. And sometimes if you just click it like that, it won't go through. So you need to make sure that your text is highlighted, and then you can try again. Medium condense, that looks pretty good. I want it to pop out a little bit more from the background than it currently is, so I can add a little shadow to it by clicking this button here, and that's going to help it pop out just a little bit more. And I want to adjust the size of it. So I'm going to go inside of the text tab here. I'm going to go down. There's all sorts of things. There's rotation, opacity, there's scale. And so I'm just going to scale down Robert's name, and I can adjust the movement here. And then I'm going to grab my text tool again and go up here and make a second line. And I'm going to say senior biochem. Excuse me, major. And I want that to be smaller because in a lower third you have the name a little bit bigger, and then you have their title a little bit smaller. So that's going to create another tab of text here. And here we need to go down to then the position below this text tab. Oop, nope, New Spirit. Don't want that one. I want. Okay. I'm gonna go down here, and then we're going to scale it down like that. You can either adjust the position by like dragging it to where you want it on the screen, or you can mess with the position here. We're going to talk more about keyframing in a week or two, but here you can also start messing with animation by clicking this toggle animation. Say that you want to start in this position, you could click a little bit out in your animation, click this toggle, the little stopwatch, that's going to put a keyframe down. And so if you wanted this animation to kind of like slide in,
And this summer,
you could start messing with that a little bit. Don't worry if that was a little confusing, because we're going to cover that more. In simpler terms, like these position and scales are controlling your whole both of your text pieces. And so if you want to move both of them around, you can do that. Using the vector motion pieces up here. Okay, we'll talk more about animation later, but yeah, if you wanted to get started just messing around, you can click this stopwatch, and then that's going to set a point in time. It's just marking a point in time where we did position, so it's marking the position here and here on your XY axis. Excuse me. So if we want to do another point here,
College, and this summer I've been
we can do that. I'm going to add a fade to the side of this, so it fades in.
here at Earlham College, and this summer I've been interning at the University of Cincinnati Medical.
You want your animation or your lower third to last at least 4 seconds.
Here at Earlham College, and this summer I've been interning.
I'm going to get rid of the stopwatch because I think I just want it to fade in and out.
College, and this summer I've been interning at the University of Cincinnati Medical College here at the Steve Davidson Lab, studying the effective dimension.
Great. So we're getting somewhere now. One thing I want to mention is that we don't want to see any jump cuts. And a jump cut is when your person
Becoming a
goes from
medical doctor.
one place to another. That's not allowed.
Doctor.
So what you can do to cover that is you can cover it with B-roll. So this is probably a place that I would cover with B-roll just because between the two clips, his arms move.
Medical doctor.
And that's really hard to cover. So I probably would place him here. There's a couple of other things you can do. So we have this like continued motion here, so it's not too far off. And so another way to cover it is to go up to our effect controls, and we're going to scale it in a little bit here. And then that's going to help us cover this cut.
My patience. I had never.
Right?
My patience. I had never.
And that's pretty good. And then the final way, which I would caution against too much use of this. We can go to your effects panel down here, and you're going to type in morph cut. And you're going to pop the morph cut in between here. And this is a pretty powerful tool. It uses artificial intelligence to like sense a face, and it's going to like move the person's mouth a little bit to make it look like less of a cut in here, which is fine. Sometimes it gets a little funky though.
Patience. I had never.
As you can see there.
Yep.
The only way that the morph cut tool works is on a cut where nothing else really moves in it, right? So nothing else really moves in the cut. So here's a cut where
So
only Robert's face moves really. And so we're going to try it on there and see if it'll work. If it doesn't work, don't use it because it looks really, really weird. But it does work in very specific instances.
So So
as you can see, in this part it worked. We had to mess a little bit with the timing to see where it was good, but now it covered up the cut.
So when I first.
It still looks
a
little unnatural, but if your eye wasn't looking for that, I think you'd be pretty good right here. Okay, so those are 3 ways that you can cover cuts. B-roll, you can use the scale tool to scale in and out to cover your cut, and you can use the morph cut tool. When you're cutting up an interview, regardless of if you need that like that coverage, it really added some visual interest to pop in and out. So if you start at this angle.
Earlham College, and this summer I've been interning at the University of Cincinnati Medical College here.
So then in your next clip, if you pop in a little bit more, then it kind of gives your audience like a little treat in their brain because they're not expecting it to be a different shot aligned. And so you can
The PhD student, lower male.
And so usually what I do is between my different shots, between my B-roll gaps and my interview, I pop in and out of them. And that just adds some more visual interest. You'll get bonus points if you do this. Very exciting. Okay, so we're feeling good about that. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that's if you click the audio panel, if you click this button up here, it's going to give you different panels that specialize in different things. So if you want to use the text-based editing, you can do that in here. Other than, I like to keep it kind of the same. I use this a lot for like captions and graphics, for when I do color grading, that sort of thing. It's all preference, but there is a specialty text-based editing tool that you can use if you want to for this. I want you to go to the audio tool, and that's going to, if you select your audio, you can make different adjustments. So they have this like automatic enhance button that you can use. I would use this again with caution. A lot of times it'll help a little bit, but it's going to also start distorting. So that's something to keep. And you want, if you use this, I wouldn't do like a 7. I would do
The root cause of this whole thing. So here,
that's going to help just smooth out your audio a little bit. You can go into these other panels. We're not going to get into these super a lot in this class, just because we don't have time to go into the audio editing portion of this a lot. But I do think like this enhanced speech is a good tool to use at a low rate, and then you can go into these if you want to. But I would be careful with using those tools because very easily you can start to sound a little bit more robotic. Okay, we are feeling good then. We're going to go back to our workspace panel. So now we're pretty happy with this. We got our music. It's leveled out. We've got our audio. It's enhanced and leveled out. We have, as you can see, we have a couple of jump cuts, but if this was actually the project I was exporting, I would make sure there's no jump cuts. Make sure there's no jump cuts in your footage. It has to be covered by B-roll. It either has to use the morph tool or it has to use the scale in and out. I have my B-roll on top, I have my interview footage on bottom, and I have a lower third. Okay, so we're feeling good. We just need to export. Go up to export. Our name should be good. We're going to select where we're going to export it to. Should be on your hard drive. In your exports folder. And you're going to save. And you're going to make sure that your time, there's not anything left, like the end of your video is the end of the time here, right? And so if we go back to the edit tool, we know that we don't have any lingering footage because the end of our video stops here, right where our time says it should. Okay, and then you're going to hit export. Remember to upload your footage to Box or your final project to Box in the .mp4 file. You're going to take the export that you just are exporting and you're going to pop that onto Box and then put it onto Moodle. Okay, great. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. Happy editing.